Money, they say, makes the world go round. But in the hands of August Belmont, it made America dance to his tune. You see, when this brilliant young German Jewish banker arrived in New York in 1837, he carried with him the backing of Europe's mighty Rothschild family and an almost supernatural talent for turning chaos into profit. What followed was one of the most spectacular rises to power in American history, as Belmont transformed himself from immigrant outsider to puppet master of the Democratic Party, the political heart of the Confederacy, on the eve of the Civil War. Next, through brilliant calculation and ruthless ambition, August Belmont Sr. would build a dynasty that shaped American destiny from the shadows, playing both sides of every conflict while emerging stronger from each crisis. Therefore, in today's episode of Old Money Luxury, we share with you the story of how one family's machinations helped spark a civil war, reshape American politics, and build an empire that would influence everything from our first subway systems to our most prestigious horse races. Although all of us likely have skeletons in the closet, so to speak, when it comes to our family background, it's unlikely that our lineage can lay claim to such a controversial legacy as being some of the puppet masters who helped pull America's strings straight into civil war. Meet the Belmonts, the family that turned America's bloodiest conflict into their personal chess match. You see, they had their start way back in the year 1837, when a plucky 24-year-old German Jewish immigrant named August Belmont Sr., our protagonist and family patriarch, entered New York City with something better than a dream. He had the Rothschild family's backing. Think of him as the 19th century's version of a tech startup founder, except instead of a garage, he had Europe's most powerful banking dynasty in his pocket. Within months, his August Belmont and Company was making Wall Street dance to its tune, and our young hero and villain was climbing social ladders faster than a firefighter at a burning mansion. But August wasn't content with mere financial domination. No, this ambitious newcomer had his sights set on something far more intoxicating: political power. By the 1850s, he'd masterfully wormed his way into the Democratic Party's inner sanctum, starting with a calculated friendship with Louisiana Senator John Slidell, who, ironically, would later become one of the Confederacy's most notorious figures. By 1860, Belmont had achieved what few Americans, let alone immigrants, could dream of. He'd become chairman of the Democratic National Committee at a time when the Democratic Party was more aligned with the pro-slavery Confederates than the anti-slavery Republicans were. And goodness, did August Belmont Sr. revolutionize his role as DNC chairman. Gone were the days of genteel handshakes and polite dinner parties. Belmont transformed political fundraising into an art form that would make modern super PACs blush. But here's where it gets deliciously devious. When the Civil War erupted, our friend August performed a political pirouette that would make Machiavelli proud. Initially an opponent of President Abraham Lincoln, Mr. Belmont swiftly rebranded himself as a Union man once the bullets started flying. Yet somehow he managed to keep his Southern Confederacy business interests intact through his Democratic Vigilant Association. Talk about playing both sides of the Mason-Dixon line. His European connections proved particularly useful in discouraging foreign powers from backing the Confederacy, though those pesky Confederate bonds still managed to find their way to London and Paris. One might almost think he was hedging his bets. Indeed, by his death in 1890, Belmont had amassed a fortune of $10 million US. That's about $280 million in today's money. Additionally, he'd established America's most prestigious horse race as his namesake. You know the one, the Belmont Stakes, and fundamentally altered the nature of American political machinery. Furthermore, the legacy was carried forward by his son, August Belmont Jr., who turned his father's strategic genius into an empire of iron and horses. While Sr. had mastered the art of moving money, Jr. mastered moving people, quite literally, by financing New York City's first subway line and the Cape Cod Canal. When he wasn't revolutionizing transportation, he was revolutionizing sport as the first president of the Jockey Club and chairman of the New York State Racing Commission. And let's not forget Alva Belmont, better known to history as Alva Vanderbilt, who married into this fascinating family and proceeded to shake America's foundations in her own delightfully disruptive way. After trading her Vanderbilt marriage for a Belmont one, she transformed her Newport mansion into a fortress of feminist revolution, bankrolling the suffrage movement's most militant wing, even including African American women and immigrants, in a movement that, at the time, too often excluded them. But to fully grasp how this audacious immigrant banking family managed to reshape a nation's destiny, from its railways to its voting rights, we must travel back to a smoky office in Frankfurt, where a young banker received an offer he couldn't refuse. The Belmont family legacy began in the ancient Jewish community of Alzey, a town nestled in Rhenish Hesse, where for generations the Schönbergs, their name meaning beautiful mountain in German, had lived and prospered. Here, in this provincial German town, the foundations were laid for what would become one of the most influential dynasties in American finance and politics. Joseph Jessel, the earliest known patriarch of the line, wielded considerable influence as the leader of Alzey's Jewish district in the year 1700, setting a precedent for the family's future role in positions of authority. Into this lineage, on the 8th of December, 1813, came August Belmont, born to Simon Belmont, the respected secretary of Alzey's synagogue, and Frederica Elsass Belmont. The boy's early years were marked by loss. His mother's death when he was just 7 forced young August to relocate to Frankfurt am Main, where destiny would intertwine his path with that of Europe's most formidable banking dynasty, the Rothschilds. In Frankfurt, August attended the Philanthropin, a revolutionary educational institution founded by Meyer Amschel Rothschild himself. But it was not merely academic connections that bound the young Belmont to the Rothschild empire. Through an intricate web of family marriages, his grandmother's late second husband's half-sister had married Amschel Meyer Rothschild. August found himself drawn into the Rothschilds' orbit at the tender age of 14, when financial hardship forced his father to end his formal education. The young man's initiation into banking began ignominiously enough, sweeping floors, polishing furniture, running errands through Frankfurt's narrow streets. Yet even in these humble tasks, Belmont displayed an almost fierce determination, studying English and French in whatever spare moments he could find, mastering the intricacies of accounting with an intensity that caught his employer's attention. By 19, he had risen to confidential clerk, and by 20, he was traveling across Europe as a private secretary, his footsteps echoing through the marble halls of banks in Naples, Paris, and Rome. Then came 1837, and with it, the assignment that would transform August Belmont from a talented protégé into an American financial titan. The Rothschilds, concerned about their investments in the Spanish Empire, dispatched the 23-year-old Belmont to Cuba. But when his ship docked in New York that May, he found a city in the grip of financial panic. Banks were collapsing, fortunes evaporating, and in the midst of this chaos, the Rothschilds' American agent had failed with staggering losses of $7 million, well over $200 million today. In that moment, Belmont made the decision that would define his future. Instead of continuing to Cuba, he established August Belmont and Company at 78 Wall Street, using his strategic acumen to navigate the turbulent waters of American finance. His gamble paid off spectacularly. He not only salvaged the Rothschilds' interests, but positioned himself as their official American representative. At 24, August Belmont had already demonstrated the ruthless intelligence and bold decision-making that would characterize his career. But as he sat in his Wall Street office in 1837, surveying the bustling financial district below, he could not have known that banking was merely the first act in his American journey. The corridors of political power beckoned, and August Belmont would soon answer their call. Within a mere 3 years, the young German immigrant August Belmont had amassed a personal fortune of $100,000, equivalent to nearly $3 million in modern currency, establishing himself as one of the 3 most significant private bankers in the United States. But it was in the realm of politics where Belmont would truly reshape American history. His entry into the political arena came through John Slidell, a shrewd Louisiana Democrat who recognized in Belmont something beyond mere wealth. He saw a man whose European connections and financial acumen could reshape the Democratic Party's fortunes. Like a master chess player positioning his pieces, Belmont began moving through Democratic circles, his influence growing with each calculated step. The 1850s marked Belmont's emergence as a political force. His role in James Buchanan's presidential campaigns of 1852 and 1856, demonstrated not just his willingness to provide financial backing, but his keen understanding of political strategy. By 1860, when he arrived at the Democratic National Convention, Belmont had become more than just a wealthy donor. He had become a political operator of the highest order, leading New York's delegation in support of Stephen Douglas. His political ascendancy reached its apex when Douglas himself insisted on Belmont's elevation to the Democratic National Committee, where he was immediately installed as chairman. But it was the Civil War that revealed the true complexity of Belmont's character. Initially advocating for compromise and peaceful separation, believing in the possibility of early reconstruction, Belmont's position underwent a dramatic transformation after the attack on Fort Sumter in April 1861. With characteristic decisiveness, he emerged as one of the Union's most ardent supporters, wielding his considerable influence in ways both public and private. He raised and equipped Union Army regiments, particularly among German-American communities, personally presenting battle flags to Colonel Blenker's German 1st New York Rifles. More significantly, he deployed his international banking connections like weapons, working tirelessly to discourage European financiers from providing credit to the Confederacy. His diplomatic efforts extended to personal tours of Europe, where he lobbied British and French leaders to maintain neutrality. Yet even as he supported the Union cause, Belmont's political maneuvering revealed a man walking a complex tightrope. He continued leading a deeply divided Democratic Party, balancing between war Democrats and peace Democrats. In 1862, he organized the Democratic Vigilant Association, promising Southern rights even as he funded Northern armies. By 1864, this tension reached its peak when he backed George B. McClellan's presidential campaign, which paradoxically combined a pro-war candidate with an anti-war platform. As the war drew to a close, Belmont remained at the helm of the Democratic Party, his chairmanship extending into the tumultuous Reconstruction era. But the political battles of the post-war years would test even this seasoned operator's skills, as he faced the challenge of rebuilding not just his party, but his vision for America's future. What came next would determine whether August Belmont's influence would survive in a nation transformed by blood and fire. The high society transformation of August Belmont into American aristocrat began in the summer of 1849 at the fashionable resort town of Saratoga Springs. There, destiny arranged a meeting between the 33-year-old financier and Caroline Slidell Perry, a delicate beauty of 20 whose presence was so ethereal that society dubbed her Tiny. But there was nothing diminutive about the impact this union would have on American society. For Caroline was no ordinary debutante. She was the daughter of Commodore Matthew Calbraith Perry, future opener of Japan, and niece of War of 1812 hero Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry. Their courtship moved with the swift certainty of a summer storm, the sophisticated European banker and the young American aristocrat finding in each other something that transcended their vastly different backgrounds. On the 7th of November, 1849, they married in an episcopal ceremony, a choice that marked Belmont's quiet departure from his Jewish heritage, though he never formally converted. The wedding was proclaimed the most fashionable event of the year, a union that bridged the worlds of new money and old American prestige. The Belmonts set about creating a lifestyle that would define Gilded Age excess. Their New York residence at 109 Fifth Avenue, purchased for $90,000 and expanded through the acquisition of neighboring property for $130,000, became a monument to their ambition. The mansion featured a conservatory and private art gallery that doubled as one of the city's few private ballrooms, its rooms echoing with the sound of masquerades, elegant dinners, and private performances that drew New York's elite into their orbit. In Newport, Rhode Island, they constructed By the Sea, a 14-acre estate that would help establish that town's reputation as America's premier summer colony. The Italianate mansion with its French mansard roof became the stage for Caroline's ascent to Queen of Society, a position she would hold for 15 years. There, she introduced 10-course French-style dinners served by a staff of 26, while her demi-dormant carriage created sensations on Newport streets. Her exquisite jewels and impeccable taste set standards that other socialites could only aspire to match. The marriage proved more than a mere social alliance. August and Caroline's union was marked by genuine affection that endured until death, producing 6 children. Perry, August Jr., Frederica, Jane Pauline, known as Jenny, Oliver Hazard Perry, and Raymond Rogers. Through these offspring, the Belmonts' influence would extend far beyond their own time, though their rise gave birth to the somewhat cutting observation that Belmont keeps everything but the 10 Commandments. Yet even as the Belmonts reached the pinnacle of social success, their story was not without its shadows. Age brought with it personal tragedies: the death of a daughter in her youth, the suicide of a son casting dark clouds over their glittering world. When pneumonia claimed August Belmont Sr. on the 24th of November, 1890, at the age of 77, his funeral at the Church of the Ascension drew New York's most prominent citizens, and his burial in Newport's Island Cemetery marked the end of an extraordinary life. But the Belmont legacy was far from finished. As the 19th century drew to a close, 3 sons, August Jr., Perry, and Oliver, stood poised to extend their father's influence into new realms of American life. The Belmont family's influence in American society extended far beyond the realms of banking and politics, reaching into the world of thoroughbred racing with a force that would permanently reshape the sport. In 1867, at Jerome Park Racetrack in the Bronx, the first Belmont Stakes was run, a race that would become the oldest and longest jewel in racing's Triple Crown, bearing the name of the immigrant banker who had risen to such heights in American society. But it was August Belmont Jr., born in 1853, who would truly transform both the sport of kings and the city of New York itself. The younger Belmont ascended to the presidency of the Jockey Club, wielding authority as chairman of the New York State Racing Commission, while helping found the National Steeplechase Association. His masterwork in the racing world came in 1905 with the establishment of Belmont Park in Elmont, New York, a track that would become the permanent home of his family's namesake stakes race. Yet August Jr.'s ambitions extended far beyond the thundering hooves of thoroughbreds. In an era when New York City strained against the limitations of surface transportation, he emerged as the visionary who would reshape the metropolis itself. As president of the Interborough Rapid Transit Company, he orchestrated the financing and construction of New York's first subway system, securing the staggering sum of $25 million in private funding. When the system opened in 1904, it fundamentally altered the city's patterns of growth and movement. His civic engagement reached into multiple spheres. In 1892, he helped establish the City Club of New York to enhance local governance, and his influence stretched beyond the city's borders to the Cape Cod Canal, which he helped finance and build. But perhaps the most dramatic transformation of the Belmont legacy came through Alva Belmont, who married into the family in 1896 after divorcing William Kissam Vanderbilt. Following the death of her second husband, Oliver Hazard Perry Belmont, in 1908, Alva emerged as a titan of the women's suffrage movement. She founded the Political Equality League, co-founded the National Woman's Party with Alice Paul, and converted her Newport mansion, Marble House, into a fortress of suffragist activity. Her financial contributions were extraordinary. In 1914 alone, she poured more than $12,000 into the Congressional Union for Woman Suffrage. When suffragists first picketed the White House in 1917, Alva Belmont's influence could be felt in every raised banner and determined face. The passage of the 19th Amendment in 1920 marked not an end, but a beginning, as she pressed the National Woman's Party to expand its fight against all forms of gender discrimination. Thus, from their Jewish roots in Alzey to reshaping America through finance, politics, urban development and social reform, the Belmonts exemplified how immigrant ambition could transform not just a family, but a nation. And now, we'd like to see you in the comments. Were you familiar with the Belmont family's history, and what is your opinion on their legacy? Is it classic American rags to riches tale, or was it devious to play both sides of the Civil War? We can't wait to hear your thoughts. And thanks again for joining us for another episode of Old Money Luxury. Cheers, until the next one.